never believed in ghosts until I visited the old mansion on the hill. It was a dark and stormy night, and I was looking for a place to stay. The mansion looked abandoned, but I saw a faint light in one of the windows. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. I decided to enter anyway, hoping to find someone who could help me. The inside of the mansion was dusty and gloomy. I walked through the hallways, calling out for anyone who might be there. I heard a creaking sound from upstairs and followed it to a room with a fireplace. The fire was the only source of light in the room, and it cast eerie shadows on the walls. I saw a portrait of a man hanging above the fireplace. He had a stern face and a piercing gaze. He looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen him before. I felt a cold breeze behind me and turned around. There was a woman standing in the doorway, wearing a white dress. She had long black hair and pale skin. She smiled at me and said, "Welcome to my home. I've been expecting you." I was startled by her sudden appearance and asked, "Who are you? How do you know me?" She walked towards me and said, "I am the lady of the house, and you are my guest. You don't remember me, do you? We met a long time ago in another life." I backed away from her, feeling a sense of dread. She looked familiar too, but I couldn't place her. She said, "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I just want to talk to you. You see, you and I have a connection, a bond that transcends time and space. You are the reincarnation of my husband, the man in the portrait." She pointed at the portrait, and I gasped. The man in the portrait was me. Or rather, he looked exactly like me. He had the same eyes, the same nose, the same mouth. He was wearing a suit and a tie and had a ring on his finger. The ring was identical to the one I had on my finger, the one I inherited from my grandfather. She said, "You don't remember, but we were married in this very house 100 years ago. We were happy until he came. He was a jealous rival who wanted me for himself. He killed you and then he killed me. He burned the house down and left us to die. But we didn't die. We became ghosts trapped in this house waiting for our chance to reunite. And now, you are here. You have come back to me, my love." She reached out to touch me, and I felt a surge of fear. I realized that she was not a woman, but a ghost who wanted to drag me into her world and make me one of her own. I screamed and ran out of the room. I ran down the stairs and headed for the front door. I had to get out of this house before it was too late. But as I reached the door, I saw that it was locked. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. I heard her voice behind me saying, "You can't leave, my love. You belong to me. You belong to this house. We're meant to be together. Forever." I turned around and saw her standing at the top of the stairs. She had a knife in her hand and a crazed look in her eyes. She said, "Don't worry, my love. It won't hurt. I'll make it quick. I'll cut your throat and then I'll cut mine. And then we'll be free. Free to be together. In the afterlife." She started to descend the stairs slowly and steadily. I backed away from the door, looking for a way to escape. I saw a window on the side of the wall and ran towards it. I smashed the glass with my fist and climbed out. I felt a sharp pain in my hand and saw that it was bleeding. I ignored it and jumped to the ground. I ran away from the house as fast as I could. I didn't stop running until I reached the nearest town. I found a police station and told them what happened. They didn't believe me, of course. They thought I was crazy or high or both. They checked the records and told me that the mansion had been burned down 100 years ago and that no one had lived there since. They said that the woman I saw was a legend, a ghost story that the locals told to scare each other. They said that she was the wife of a wealthy businessman who was murdered by a jealous lover along with her husband. They said that she haunted the house, looking for her husband's reincarnation, and that she killed anyone who entered the house. They said that I was lucky to be alive and that I should stay away from the house. They bandaged my hand and gave me a ride to the nearest hotel. They told me to forget about the whole thing and move on with my life. But I can't forget. I can't forget her face, her voice, her touch. I can't forget the portrait, the ring, the knife. I can't forget the house, the fire, the ghost. I can't forget because I know the truth. I know that she was right. I know that I am the reincarnation of her husband. I know that we have a connection, a bond that transcends time and space. I know that she is waiting for me to come back to her, waiting for me to join her in the afterlife. And I know that I will. I know that I will go back to the house. I know that I will face her again. I know that I will let her kill me, because I love her, and I always will. I was looking for a place to stay for the night, as my car had broken down on a deserted road. I saw a sign that said, "Vacancy," and followed it to a large old house. It looked like no one had lived there for years, but I was desperate and knocked on the door. A man opened the door and greeted me with a smile. He said his name was Mr. Smith, and he was the owner of the house. He said he had a spare room that he could rent me for a cheap price. He seemed friendly enough, so I agreed and followed him inside. The house was dark and dusty, with cobwebs and cracks everywhere. Mr. Smith led me to a room on the second floor and handed me a key. He said I could use the bathroom down the hall, but to avoid the basement at all costs. He said there was something dangerous down there, something that he couldn't control. He said he would leave me alone and wished me a good night. I thanked him and entered the room. It was small and musty, with a single bed, a dresser, and a window. I locked the door behind me and put my bag on the bed. I decided to take a shower before going to sleep, so I grabbed a towel and headed to the bathroom. The bathroom was filthy, with mold and stains everywhere. The water was cold and rusty, but I didn't care. I just wanted to wash off the dirt and sweat from the road. I turned on the shower and stepped inside. As I was shampooing my hair, I heard a loud thud from below. It sounded like something heavy had fallen on the floor. I ignored it and continued to shower. Then I heard another thud, and another, and another. They were getting louder and closer, like something was coming up the stairs. I turned off the shower and wrapped the towel around me. I opened the bathroom door and peeked outside. The hallway was dark and silent, except for the thuds that were now on the same floor as me. I saw a shadow moving along the wall, heading towards my room. I panicked and ran to my room. I slammed the door behind me and locked it. I looked for something to barricade the door, but there was nothing. I grabbed my bag and ran to the window. I tried to open it, but it was stuck. I looked outside and saw that I was too high to jump. I was trapped. I heard the thuds reach my door. I heard a loud bang as something hit the door. The door shook and cracked, but held. I heard another bang, and another, and another. The door was breaking, and whatever was behind it was coming in. I screamed and backed away from the door. I looked around the room, looking for a weapon, but there was nothing. I was defenseless. I heard the door splinter and shatter, and saw a dark figure enter the room. It was Mr. Smith, but he was not the same. He was covered in blood and gore, with a twisted smile on his face. He had a large axe in his hand, dripping with red. He looked at me and said, "I told you to avoid the basement. That's where I keep my victims. You're next." He raised the axe and swung it at me. I dodged and ran to the other side of the room. He followed me and swung again. I dodged again and ran to the bed. He followed me and swung again. I dodged again and ran to the dresser. He followed me and swung again. He was faster and stronger than me, and I knew I couldn't escape. He cornered me and raised the axe for the final blow. I closed my eyes and waited for the end, but it never came. I opened my eyes and saw that he had stopped. He was staring at something behind me, with a look of fear and shock on his face. I turned around and saw what he saw. It was the thing from the basement. It was a monstrous creature with pale skin, sharp teeth, and glowing eyes. It had claws and tentacles, and a mouth full of fangs. It had escaped from its prison and followed us upstairs. It was hungry and angry, and it wanted revenge. It grabbed Mr. Smith and dragged him to the floor. It tore him apart with its claws and teeth and devoured him alive. It made a horrible noise, a mix of growls and screams as it ate him. I watched in horror as blood and guts splattered everywhere. Then it looked at me. It smiled and licked its lips. It said, "Thank you for freeing me. You're next." It lunged at me and bit my neck. I felt a sharp pain and then nothing. In the dead of night, the wind whispered ominous melodies that carried me to the outskirts of town. The looming house stood as a sentinel of fear, its silhouette outlined against the starless sky. As I approached, the air grew thick with a bone-chilling cold that penetrated my very soul. The house seemed alive, an entity with a sinister presence that permeated every brick and board. Shadows danced like malevolent spirits, twisting and contorting in grotesque shapes that played tricks on my mind. Upon crossing the threshold, a suffocating heaviness settled over me, as if the house itself sought to devour my courage. The floorboards groaned beneath my weight, their eerie echoes amplifying the sense of foreboding that clung to every corner. Rooms stretched out like an endless maze, each one a realm of its own horrors. Paintings adorned the walls, their eyes following my every step with a haunting intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Time lost meaning within the house's twisted embrace. The incessant ticking of an ancient clock echoed through the halls, counting down the moments I remained ensnared in its clutches. The air was thick with spectral whispers, faint yet insistent, as if the very walls were trying to divulge the secrets they held. I stumbled upon a dusty diary, its pages filled with cryptic warnings and tales of woe, detailing the tragic fates of those who dared to venture within. As the night wore on, the house's malevolence intensified, manifesting in spectral apparitions that flickered in and out of existence. They whispered dark promises and taunted me with their elusive presence, a chilling reminder of the house's hold over lost souls. Desperation consumed me, urging me to escape the labyrinthine corridors that seemed to twist and shift, leading me in circles. Panic gnawed at the edges of my sanity as I raced against the relentless torment haunting every inch of the cursed house. With the first faint streaks of dawn, I broke through the doors, gasping for breath as the sunlight washed away the malevolent shadows. Yet, even in the safety of daylight, the memories of that harrowing night linger, a haunting testament to the horrors that lurk within the walls of the haunted house. Gasping for air, I stumbled into the welcoming embrace of the dawn, the morning light a soothing balm against the haunting darkness. The distant sounds of waking birds and the gentle warmth of the sun felt like a reprieve, banishing the residual chill that had settled deep within my bones. The house stood silent now, its facade betraying no hint of the nightmarish ordeal it had inflicted upon me. As I turned to glance back one last time, the structure seemed almost mundane, an ordinary relic of forgotten times. Yet the memory lingered like a shadow, a testament to the inexplicable horrors I had faced within those walls. The whispers, the shifting shadows, and the ghostly apparitions, they remained vivid, etched into the recesses of my mind. Though free from its sinister grasp, I couldn't shake the feeling that a part of me had been forever marked by that harrowing night. The haunted house had been more than a mere dwelling. It was a vessel of malevolence that left an indelible imprint on my soul. With a shudder, I turned away, walking briskly, eager to leave the chilling memories behind. As I merged into the bustling town, life resumed its normal rhythm, oblivious to the horrors that lurked just beyond its borders. But in quiet moments and fleeting glances, I'd catch a glimpse of a shadow that seemed darker than the rest, a fleeting reminder of the night I ventured into the heart of terror. And in those moments, I'd feel a chill crawl down my spine, a chilling echo of the haunted house that would forever haunt my memories.